Welcome to No Gatekeeping, the Founder Series. I am so glad you're here. I'm Carlyn Bushman, sales strategist, business coach, and founder of Pop Academy. I lead female founders and entrepreneurs to build big, bold, profitable businesses with strategy, confidence, and real clarity, and no burnout, and don't burn through cash. This series was born from a need I kept hearing. I wish someone would just tell me the truth about what it actually takes to run a business, like to be that entrepreneur, to be that CEO. So that's what we're doing here. Real conversations, honest strategies, and stories that don't skip the messy parts. No one better than talking to Traci today. Today's episode is one I know that will hit home for so many of you. If you've ever felt the weight of leading a team, making big decisions, or wondering if it's all just too much, you're not alone. Today's guest is opening up about what it really looks like behind the scenes of running a product-based business. We're talking with Traci, founder of the Decided Collection, in an episode called The Real Struggles of Running a Business That No One Talks About. Traci is the founder of the Decided Collection, a purpose-led pajama brand for tween girls and a proud Pop Academy graduate. She's built a product-based business grounded in values and mission, but she's also learned firsthand what it takes to lead a team, manage growth, and navigate the emotional load of being the one in charge. Today, she's here to share what it really, really looks like. Pull back the curtain, behind the scenes, not the Instagram looking visual we get all the time. Welcome, Traci. It's so great to have you join us live.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's just dive right into
Let's
it.
do it.
Okay, what's one thing about running a business that totally surprised you?
It's interesting. I think the one thing that, this is on a positive note, the one thing that surprised me was how many people are willing to step up and help you. People that you don't know, people that you're meeting through networking or whatever that may be. I was surprised because you always think it's going to be your inner circle. That's going to be the, family, friends. That's going to be the ones that are going to really lift you up and propel you. And I think that they do to a certain extent, of course, but it's been the outside world coming in and the connections that I've made that have just been astounding to me. How helpful and kind, supportive, thoughtful people are who are meeting you for the first time and are like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Let me make these 3 connections for you, or whatever that may be. And I think that's been a beautiful piece of this.
I think you've just pointed out a life lesson for us, actually. I mean, I think this goes bigger than business, but let's talk about that first. From a business perspective, you're being really vulnerable here. And I think putting yourself out there to ask for help from strangers, I mean, friends and family is one thing, right? But from strangers, how do you get comfortable doing that? I think that is a very unique characteristic, specifically that you've just spoken to. Share more.
I think you have, I think for one, because this is mine, it makes it a little bit easier for me to do that. But 2, being vulnerable, right? Admitting that you don't know what you don't know. Because listen, there's not one person who's running a business, who started a business, who has an idea. You don't know everything. My background is not fashion. I didn't know any of that. I had to be educated. And so it's finding people that you can feel comfortable with, and being vulnerable, saying, I don't know what that means. Can you explain that to me? Or I want to go do this. And then they're going to tell you the 3 reasons why maybe you can't do it that way, but you can do it another way, right? Having that expertise it's just been so valuable for me. And I think I have become very comfortable saying, I don't know what I don't know.
Okay, so let's play off that for a second. And again, I feel like more life lessons here, but let's again try to stay in the lane of business, right? I mean, so if you don't know what you don't know, what I run into, what I learned from my previous business that's still in existence, my product-based handbag business, which I thought was going to be really easy, by the way, handbags. That's not crowded, Right. Anyway, I thought I love handbags. Who wouldn't like a new handbag? But on that note, like, who do you trust? Like, how did you, because if you don't know what you don't know, how did you decide like who to trust? And I know you've got a pretty well-rounded team that supports
Mm-hmm.
you, right? How did you know like when it wasn't just noise? And I mean, I've been taken advantage of before by
Of
certain things.
course, right.
And I take responsibility. I'm not just saying it's all on that particular consultant or group or agency,
Yep.
but you would hope that everybody has your best interests of your company in mind. But again, it's yours. So they're going to have their company interests in mind too.
Absolutely. I think for me, it's been a journey of, honestly, it's following my gut. It's following what feels authentic. And so I can immediately tell, I can read people pretty good. And so I can automatically tell from a conversation whether I'm going to really be able to connect with somebody, or not. And that's really important to me, especially, again, new business, right? New industry that I'm in, trying to do something different. Um, for me to have somebody who is just as excited about this as I am, maybe not at the same level, but genuinely has that interest, wants to see it succeed, wants to see me succeed, and wants to have a true partnership. So that has been, and when I go into those conversations with anyone that I'm working with, that's what I say is I'm looking to build a team around me where there's true partnership, where we're collaborating, where we're supporting one another. You're not just supporting me, I'm supporting you too. So that it's a long-term relationship. This doesn't, it's going to go beyond just one or two transactions. That's what I'm looking for, a core team. That's really what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and you also mentioned something that's very interesting from a business perspective, moving from the transactional to the relationship building, right? I mean, that's huge. I think in any business for us to think about. But when you think about the size of your support team right now,
Mm-hmm.
like what is one of the hardest things? Like what is the one of the hardest things you're having to manage in that space?
I think for me, it's just making sure that I'm maximizing what everybody is doing, that I'm taking a look, and I've even said recently, like, taking a step back. We've been in, we launched last November. It's time to kind of look at things and see, how's everybody doing? Am I utilizing everybody to the best of their abilities? Do they feel like they're being able to contribute as much as they want to, right? Those types of things. And so I think it's constantly kind of taking a pause and looking holistically at what's working, what's not working. Is there some area that you feel like maybe we should tweak this a little bit? And then deciding what are the right times to have those conversations or to make those shifts. And so I think for me, that's been a journey over time. I mean, I've had to make some changes early on and pivot based on budget and things like that. And so I think it's just, again, for me, following what I think is the right thing to do in that moment, but still nurturing those relationships and not, you certainly don't want to burn any bridges, or because you never know what the future holds. And maybe those people that you did or didn't work with, you can, work with again in the future.
I have such a great example of that. That is so interesting you brought that up. So I worked with a digital agency for my handbag company, and I'll just be honest, I had no idea what the hell I was doing in that space. And like I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what metrics they were feeding me. I'm like, yeah, sure, but I don't see sales. They're like, yeah, it's not about sales yet. You're too early. It's more about awareness, right? And now I know all the terms and
Right.
it's like that. And anyway, oh my gosh. So I was frustrated. I wasn't getting sales. I was running ads, the whole meta thing, blah, blah, blah. And I said, this just is not working. I'm spending all this money, and my budget probably was very small at that
Right.
time
Of
looking
course.
back. So of course I had to have what would have been like a decent ROAS. I don't know. But moving forward in that, I parted ways. And then seriously, like 2 or 3 years later, one of the account manager that was my point of contact, like all of a sudden we reconnected and she was working in a different space on different projects. And I'm like, oh my gosh, her name's Katie. I'm like, Katie. And I love the way she spells her name. It's Kaydee. And she's just
Oh,
delightful. Yeah, it was so wonderful. And she's like, I can remember her. And this is a decade, more than a decade ago, probably at this point,
wow.
about a decade. And it's so interesting how it comes full circle. So I think keeping those relationships and not
Yeah.
burning those bridges, but when do you move off of what could be like a relationship or a loyalty pack feeling for the betterment of your company and like entertain other options, right? I mean, it's your
Yeah,
company.
absolutely. I think you have to look realistically and kind of go inside and say, okay, can what I have today take me to where I want to be tomorrow? And if it can't, then you have to, and again, you have to be thoughtful about this, right? You can't just make a knee jerk decision when it comes to your business, especially if you're talking about offloading something that is a well oiled machine at this point, right? Like you need to think all of that through. But I think the one thing that I have learned a lot since starting this journey is that you're constantly iterating, you're constantly changing, you're constantly thinking about different projects and different needs. And I think you have to just continue to let that thought process go through and get to a place where you feel comfortable and confident in what you want your next steps to look like, and then make those changes. Or maybe it's not even a change. Maybe it's not letting anybody go, but maybe it's changing the way that you're working together or asking for more or less for a period of time. And so I think that's really, you know, everything for me goes back to your gut. You know, how are you feeling? What is it that, you know, I think we all know deep down what we should be do, what feels right. And I think it's just becoming comfortable with actually saying that out loud.
Interesting. So I'm hearing you. I mean, I hear a couple different things. First of all, I mean, there's shiny object syndrome too, right? In the product or service based side where you're like, oh, that didn't work. I'm going to pivot, or that person's not
Yes,
doing what I need. So there's that side of
absolutely.
the conversation where you've got to give it time to actually do the thing to succeed, right? It's not, did you actually get what you wanted to out of that product or service launch or whatever that looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that side, but then you also, and I think women really struggle with this. I know from an investment standpoint, women struggle with it. I've been in that space before where we hang on to our investments longer than we probably should because we have this sense of belief that it's going to do better if we just
Yes,
wait, right?
yes. Or
Tell me,
you
you're
see the
agreeing. Tell me
yeah,
what
because
you're
you see the
thinking.
I'm gonna fix my headphones really quick. You
Yeah.
see the potential, right? I think that that's like, you know, I mean, in life, right? It's a life lesson too. Like you see, even if there's a hiccup, you're like, but I can see the potential. I can see where this could go. But then if it doesn't go there and you're still holding on, then what do you do, right? So, I yeah, I'm also very loyal. So that's a big piece for me. So when I establish a relationship or a connection, um, there's a reason. Like I'm invested and I want us to stay connected and continue to grow and build each other up and things like that. And so letting go of those things is harder for me. I'm not one to just like sever people off. You know, that's not a, it takes time for me to get there. Um, and so I think it's a journey. It's a personal journey, but as an entrepreneur, there's risk to that, and you have to like that's where I'm pushing myself more to be like, this isn't personal, it's business. And so if there is a decision that needs to be made at some point about something, whatever it may be, um, you know, then that's what has to be done, and it has nothing to do with nobody's a bad person. There's nothing like that. It's just maybe you were only meant to be partnered for that part, you know, part of time, and now it's time to move on to something else for both of you.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, I mean, I early on I had partnered with someone to help me with social media, and she was amazing, adored her, but I genuinely couldn't afford her. I had, you know, her pricing was higher than I really could afford at the time, and I was worried because I needed support, just trying, you know, wearing all of the hats, as you know. And she was able, like, she got me up and running and did a beautiful job. But it was a really hard conversation to say, listen, I have to pivot because I genuinely can't afford you. And in order to get me where I needed to be, I needed more from her, which would have been more money. And so, I mean, we're still connected today. I think she's phenomenal. I would refer anybody to her. It has nothing to do with that. It was just I couldn't I don't have the budget, right? And so but there was a time where I probably would have hung on longer, right? Maybe but because it was business and because it was budget and because it was, I had to think about the business and where I wanted to go. It was a decision I had to make. It wasn't easy, but it was the right one.
So that's a really good way to look at it. And I think that is something that we also struggle with personally as women leaders in this space too, is are the relationships that we don't want them transactional, but yet we have to surround ourselves with humans that believe in us and support us, right? So when I think about building that inner circle, whether it's your team or your collaborators or your mentors or your mentees or all of those things, what does that look like for you today? I'm sure, like you said, you've changed as kind of that journey of entrepreneurship person over the last 12 months, right? So
Yeah.
what does can you give us like some of those details on how you make sure you continuously surround yourself with the people that are going to support you in your mission and your life?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate in that I do have, it's not like I have a huge team. I have a few people that support the business. And fortunately, there are people who are genuinely invested in what I'm doing and me, and also know that I'm a mom, right? So at the end of the day, like that, I mean, being an entrepreneur and having this business is amazing, but at the end of the day, I'm a mom and my kids will always come first. And so there's moments when I'm like, hey, I need to move a meeting, or I can't, can you do this for me? Well, I got to go run and get the kids, or my son is sick, or whatever it may be. And to have those other women around that get it. And they're like, yeah, no problem. I got you. I'll cover it. Or, that type of thing. That's what I'm trying to surround myself with. And vice versa. If they're like, I'm so sorry. I know we're supposed to have a meeting today. My kids are home sick. No worries. Go take care of your family. And so I think that's, for me, it's been really important to have people who are strategic, who are thoughtful, who can think ahead, who are planning, even beyond me, to say, hey, I've been thinking about something. I want to give you an idea versus me pushing, and having that, or, I've been seeing some things with your data and I think we need to look into that. Great. Let's go look at it. Right. So I don't know everything. I'm not an expert across all the things that we're doing. I'm not a website expert. I'm not a Klaviyo expert. I'm not an expert in all of those things. That's why you bring those people around you to help with that. But that's been the biggest thing for me, is I want people who are thinking ahead, but that are genuinely invested.
So
And I know that sounds good.
let's think ahead, Traci, 5 years from now, and you're in the big box retailers and they
Yes.
want to have a meeting during school pickup.
Yeah, I would probably say I can take the call, but I'll be in the car picking my kids up from school.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think that's, and again, it depends on the meeting, who's in it, what's going on. But I think if I've built that, ideally in my perfect world, I've built that relationship with that vendor and they know who I am. They know what I produce. They know the quality of the product. And they know if I need to go get my kids, I can still have a very, interactive, high quality meeting with them and still be picking my kids up.
Do you start that relationship building now?
I do. I think I really try in every interaction that I have, if it feels right, to build those relationships, whether, not because I want something out of it. I just genuinely want to make those connections. There's something so powerful about meeting with other really talented female founders. Every conversation you pick something up because everybody's doing something different. We're all trying to achieve different things. And there's just something really powerful in it. And like I said, every day a conversation will come up and I learn something new, or I hear about something different, or you and I will have a conversation and something will come up, like I'm always learning. And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is there's no shortage of things that you can learn on any given day.
Were you, just out of curiosity, because I don't know this about you, were you raised by entrepreneurs?
My dad was in sales, so he did real estate pretty much my whole life. He did go
Mm.
off and start his own business for a couple of years, but no, my mom, my both of my parents worked, um, you know, full time corporate jobs, if you will. Um, but I think there was always kind of that entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, in our house, like do things your own way and find your own way, and um, we were kind of pushed to test the limits and things like that. So I think that that is where it has come from. But also, I would say just through life experience, like going to college, being in corporate America, watching other female entrepreneurs and stories. I mean, I can remember for years watching the Today Show, for instance, and when they would highlight, a new female founder and hearing the story of like, I was, in corporate America, had an idea and took a leap of faith. And now, you just, and being so inspired. And at times, especially once I had my daughter, like being emotional, thinking, gosh, that's what I want to do one day. I want to be that. And I want to be that inspiration for somebody else. And that was,
Like your daughter.
yeah, yes, like my daughter. So
How does that
that's
make you
been
feel when you say
it.
that?
I mean, it could make me emotional. But yeah, I want her to see what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever that looks like, whatever she decides to do in her life, that's up,
Mm-hmm.
obviously that she's 11, so we have a little while
Mm-hmm.
to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been such an integral part of this business. She's the reason I started it, right? She's
Mm-hmm.
the whole inspiration behind this. And watching her watch me, um, and give me ideas and say, "Oh, mom, you should do this," or "What about this?"
Mm-hmm.
Or, that's been fun. And for her to have pride in this business,
Mm-hmm.
even though, right, she's not in the day to day, but she's a very big part of it,
Mm-hmm.
has been really special. And my son, he's almost 3, but hopefully eventually, right, that'll be him too.
That says so much about who you are and what you've built from the inside out, right? I look at different founders and I think, people believe in people and people buy from people and people follow people, not
Mm-hmm.
just stuff or not just another brand or not just another fast fashion
Absolutely.
trend, what that looks like. And I think, part of your story is just that and seeing your daughter step into that as well and knowing that she shares that with others. I know, there's a time with our 4 kids, right? And I did take some time off when they were in the messy middle school, as we've just recently also called it.
Mm-hmm.
So that messy middle. And I remember as they were going into high school and having conversations, and I was headed back to work, but having some conversations with other moms. And, people were talking about where their children were going to go to college, right? Or not go to college or trade schools or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
is. And how excited they were about, the different early acceptance admissions they would receive or something like that. And honestly, Traci, in the back, I don't know why I said that word honestly, in the back of my mind, I was just really, really grateful that my kids made it through middle school and made it through high school with like, unscathed,
Limited
whatever
damage.
that looks like. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, suicide attempts and overdoses and minors in possession and pregnancies
Car
and
accidents.
yes, yes. And it makes my heart like, you know,
It's
that
scary.
was what was important to me. And I know you are constantly navigating that middle school life with your
Yes.
daughter, which is not kind.
No, and it's interesting. So the time when I started this business, she was around 8 years old when I came up with the idea. She was going 8 to 9, and she really, I think I'd said this before, kind of came into her own aesthetic. I wasn't expecting it so young. And anyway, it's such a journey, and it's been a beautiful thing because it's the whole reason we started this pajama line was because it was the one thing we couldn't find was pajamas that she loved. Um, But the interesting part is kind of I wasn't expecting at that younger age for her to start to be so much more aware of the outside world, right? Because as kids, the beautiful thing about kids is that they don't care what other people think. They just, right? They'll dance in the middle of the grocery store. They just kind of do whatever they want to do. And then as you get older, you lose that because then you people start judging you or whatnot.
Ugh.
Right. And so that's been the journey, is trying to keep her. Look, she's a kid. She's going to make mistakes. She's not going to do everything perfectly. She's not going to say all the right things, all of that. But just to really remind her, like, what is most important, the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with, and the kind of human being that you want to be, right? What is your character? How do you want to be perceived by others, your teachers, your friends, your family? And so really trying to have those conversations, and the whole goal really, obviously it's the pajamas, but there's a bigger mission here, is just to meet girls where they're at. Like every girl, every young girl is perfect just the way that she is. Right. And so like meeting them where they're at, just own the age that you're at. You don't have to try to be older and try to be different, stay true to who you are. And that's been a big mission of mine, especially when it comes to my daughter, because to your point, she's getting ready to go into middle school. And I really want to prep her so that by the time she hits high school, which you just made a very valid point of all of the things, even in middle school, that can happen, right? That she's grounded, that she knows, right, she has a moral compass, and that she knows, she has a safe place to land always, no matter what. We've told her always, no matter what you do, there's nothing you can ever do that Daddy and I will stop loving you. Like, we're always here for you. We're not always going to like what you do. We're going to obviously tell you when you're right and wrong, but we're always here, and leaving those lines of communication open. And I think that's such a key. It's a life lesson in many areas, right? Like that will hopefully take her far. And I see it. I mean, I do see where she'll come home and say, oh, a scenario happened and I didn't feel comfortable with that, or I didn't like how somebody said that. So at least she's identifying, things that are happening. And so it's just important that we build all kids. But for me, obviously I have a son too. And so it's very important. He's still little and he's very important too. But for me, my daughter is, girls, it's hard. Girls are tough. I remember middle school. It was not easy.
No, same.
At all.
No. And I had two younger sisters, and one ran, and I'm not young. And at that time, one ran away from school. Like I was already in high school and she was in middle school, and she like just took off from middle school and just ran away basically. Right. So it's not, and I feel like I'm understanding you and your bigger mission. And I think as founders, this is even the unfiltered stuff that we don't talk about. What is the mission of my business or the purpose? It's because we couldn't find, and I'm paraphrasing some of what you're saying, but we couldn't find pajamas that suited my daughter. She was going through this, transition that she was looking. But really what I'm hearing from you is your underlying mission has to do with navigating those middle school or tween years as a girl, and having that foundation to stand in her truth and be who she is. And again, I know I'm paraphrasing some of what you're saying, but I feel like pajamas are just the vehicle to your bigger picture.
It is. And I think, the other thing is too, is everybody wants to feel good in what they're in. Right. And so like, for me, the pajamas, it's a tool, right? It's a way for girls to, when you come home from school and you want to what do we all do when we come home, right? We want to take off everything that we're in and getting something really comfy, right? Yeah, exactly. Get in something really comfy. And so being able to provide something that makes girls feel comfortable and confident, and they feel that was made for them, right? So you're not a teenager and you're not 5. This is meeting you right where you're at. It's giving you the style and the elevation and the comfort that you want. And you get to pick and choose. Like, the great thing about our PJs is you can mix and match them. So you can pick your top, you can pick your bottom, make it your style. Again, you get to own who you are and style yourself the way that you want to.
Yeah, I love that. And I think pajamas, and I wanted to say this earlier, I know we have had a couple interviews, which has been super fun.
I love it.
But pajamas are a vulnerable space, right? So, if your body's changing, and I don't know about everybody watching and listening in today, but when you wear pajamas, there's not a lot you wear underneath those pajamas all the time, right? So as a girl, and a young girl, and her body changing, there has to be, like you said, a level of comfort where she feels that She is beautiful and has this, essence about her that is also secure.
Yeah, and can relax, right? Like you're at home, you're have a sleepover, you're where like you can be in something that you can relax, feel good in, and sleep well in ultimately,
Right.
right? And so I think everything that we do, right, in life is just, I mean, I know I love getting in a good pair of pajamas at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But what you're when they do their hair, you watch the girls and it's just so you can see when when they feel good, right? It exudes, it just comes out of them. And so I think anything that we can do to support that is important.
So we've talked about like really the pajamas as a vehicle to really some of your like your bigger mission and purpose,
Hmm.
right? The things you're really leaning into. I have a question for you just, as we head towards the end of this conversation, and we talked a lot about team and surrounding yourself with the right people and the right team. How do you, on a consistent basis, keep your team aligned with that value, that mission, that purpose?
That's a very good question. It's a conversation we have often, to be honest with you. Like even and it comes up in not deliberative ways, but let's say it's content, right? Like we're working on an email and I want to change the positioning of that wording, or I want, let's be cognizant not to use this word, but use this word. Again, it goes back to that mission, right? Like what the vision of the company is. And so I think those are the ways, or imagery that we're using, right? Making sure that, I think in all of those conversations, whether we're building an ad, we're doing something for the website, we're creating email, we're creating a social post, it's making sure that there's a thread that goes through all of that. There's similar messaging, and that we're staying true to ultimately what we want to convey, right? We want girls to feel good about themselves. We want it to be fun. We're not trying to be your parent and coming down and saying, this is the way you should feel. We want to be almost like a big sister, right? Like we're out there telling you, stay true to who you are, believe in yourself, have fun, and give them the tools um, and the wording and the visuals that they need to be able to see themselves in that. And so that's been the most important thing for me too, is just I do get into the weeds, and my team will even tell you, like, we'll work on something, they'll send it to me, and we'll get on a call, and I'm like, change that, move that over here. What about this different font? What about a color? Because I want it. I'm a very visual person, so as soon as I see it, I'm like, that's it. We're good. We're done. But they all laugh because they know, okay, and now they're already starting to, like, some will text me and I'll say, hey, I have an edit. Let me guess, the header's too big. Yep. They already know. And so I think that's how it's really been. It's just those constant conversations. And again, as the leader and as the entrepreneur, being the one to say, I don't like the way that looks, or I want to change this a little bit because it doesn't feel true to what we're trying to convey. And I think you have to stand strong in that conviction. Allow your team to push back if they feel differently, but and they all know they can give me their opinions. I want that. I want them to push back if they don't agree, so we can have some good dialogue about different things. But I think it's really honing in on those details and making sure that your messaging is coming across the way you want it to come across.
Yeah, I agree. And making sure you have that. You brought up a great point. For anybody listening, don't be shy. You are the CEO of your business. Don't be
Mm-hmm.
shy about having those conversations that align with who you are, what your brand represents. That is so incredibly important. And I think it's easy to delegate, but please don't abdicate, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, you need to be who cares if people say, geez, Traci, you're deep in the weeds on this. You're like, I don't
Yeah.
care. Guess
Yeah.
what? It's my business. Like, I don't
Exactly.
care. I don't
Exactly.
care. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
So since this is live, it's great because it's right now. What's going on with the Decided collection like today? Like what's new? What's exciting? So we can, just talk about that for a minute
Yeah,
before we wrap.
we just launched a few new pieces, which we're very excited about. Um, and a new sleep mask, which was, again, kind of a new, the goal is to continue to add other elements to the collection that go beyond just pajamas. So we have the sleep mask. Also, if you order right now, you get a free journal, which is so great. My daughter loves all that kind of stuff. And so that was been a really exciting thing to add to kind of an offer to our customers. And yeah, the new designs, the great thing is our original collection, has 4 pieces. Our new collection has 4 plus the sleep mask. But you can mix and match. So I know I mentioned that earlier, but the whole point of this too was, as a parent, if I just bought my daughter a pair of pajamas and now we're going to go buy another set of pajamas, the thought that she could take those pieces and mix and match them, that's heaven to me. Because then I'm not continuing, right? Like, you know, or now she's wearing the shorts with like some random t-shirt and things like that. Like I wanted to be able to provide something that they can continue to elevate, but just make their own. And so that's a big thing. We have a giveaway coming up, which we're very excited about. That starts next week. Everybody stay tuned. So this is a big one. We're very excited about this one. And yeah, just it's continuing to just focus on what's ahead and fine tune what we're doing now. I mean, I'll be honest, you know, it's still new, right? We launched last November. I'm still learning. We're still making tweaks to the website and to different things to make sure that we're really optimizing our customer experience. And I'm always open for feedback. So we're always asking people who've purchased from us, or if, friends, or you know, anyone. Well, you know, I ask you too, right? Give me feedback. If you see something that doesn't feel right, or you're like, hi, what, maybe you should have done that a little bit differently. Like I'm always open for that, because I think that's how you learn and how you get better.
I agree. And I love your approach on that. And I think that's one thing we can leave everybody with is don't take it. So business is personal. I understand that. But growing a business, you cannot take everything so personal, because people are genuinely happy to help you and give you feedback. And Traci, you really exude the openness and that vulnerability of asking, and for the first one to raise your hand to say, I actually don't know anything about that. Can you educate me? So I love that about you. I love that. You know, we don't have to know everything about everything. And it took me a long time to do that. A couple businesses, you know, that have failed to learn that as well. So
Yeah.
learning lessons, and for anybody, you know, I'd rather not have them learn those lessons.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Where can we find you?
Yes, you can find us. Our website is decidedco.com. And you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, The Decided Collection. And you can follow me, Traci Channer.
Amazing. Well, this is exactly what No Gatekeeping is about. Real stories, real strategy, and founders showing up with honesty, which is so refreshing. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss next week's episode. If you've loved this one, of course, you want to share it with a founder who's navigating the pressure and needs to hear she is not alone.
No.
Thank you again to Traci. So enjoyed this, and we'll see everyone next Thursday, same time, same place. Have a great weekend.